Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. I'm glad you're here. I'll be interviewing CEOs who have successfully scaled their B2B sales organization. In each episode, I'll start by uncovering the sales background of each CEO, dig into the strategies they use to build their sales organization, and wrap it up with what the future holds. We'll cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of scaling a sales organization. I'm your host, Alice Hyman. Hi, I'm Alice Hyman, and I'm so excited to be here today on Sales Talk for CEOs with Julie Thomas. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Alice. It's so fun to be here today.
I'm really excited because you and I are in the same business. We help other people sell. And so I love to talk about sales. But today we want to talk about how you acquired value selling and how you grew the sales at that company, how you grew the sales team, and really learn about the successes you've had and the challenges. So why don't we start a little bit with the backstory and tell us, how is it that you came to be the owner of Value Selling?
Well, it's an interesting story. I often call myself the accidental entrepreneur because this is never anything that I set out to do in my career or in my life. But about a number of years ago, I was a sales executive, an account executive for Gartner Group, which is now just Gartner Inc., and grew up there in sales, was trained in value selling, the earlier versions of the value selling framework, early on in my career by the founder, a gentleman by the name of Lloyd Sappington. Well, I was successful in sales, and I advanced my career through various roles of sales management. And ultimately, in the early 2000s, I took over global sales training for Gartner. So then I found out that I became Value Selling. At the time, it was called Value Vision's largest customer. And we did a train-the-trainer model. Wow. So I became very good friends with the founder of Value Selling. Well, the founder had taken on a business partner in the late 90s. And as often business partnerships go, this one did not go that well. And they were deciding they were going to go through a business divorce, and they were deciding how to wind that down and starting to shop the company. Yeah. And they spoke with a number of even competitors in the space to see if they wanted to buy them out. When I was made the decision to leave Gartner Group. So through our social connections, as well as through the friendship that had unfolded, he approached me and said, "Hey, what do you think? What if we put together a plan and you take this whole animal over?" And so that's what we did. And we put together a 4-year transition and a 4-year earnout essentially for him. And the business partner went away right away. And he mentored me for a short period of time, but essentially he hit the golf links and started playing a whole lot more golf and had a great time. So that's how I ended up here. And that was back in the summer of 2003. So it's been almost 18 years.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I love the way you call yourself an accidental entrepreneur. I think a lot of CEOs feel that way. Even the ones who started their own company, like they never really meant to start a company, but they just couldn't help themselves. Basically.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you couldn't help yourself. You knew the product was really good because of training. You had been through it and it was awesome. And so it seems like it was just a serendipity and a great fit, but it sounds like you had some sales experience. So you carried a bag. You were actually out selling for years for Gartner, rose up through the ranks, and then actually became a leader and helping everyone else get trained in sales. And that's how you found value selling. So you came into being a CEO with sales as your background. As you know, many CEOs don't enter the world of being a CEO with any sales background. And that's really one of the reasons that I do this podcast, because I want CEOs to share what they know, what they've learned, and help other CEOs who really want to grow their company and grow their sales. So I want to hear how you did it. When you first got there, you told me that there were independent contractors selling. So they had a channel model and there were just a few. So tell us what you found when you arrived in terms of what sales organization, what structure was there, and then how you built it to increase the sales to where you are today.
So interesting. So think back to 2003. When I acquired the company, they had a website. It wasn't very sophisticated. It certainly didn't do what a website would do for you today. They had a couple of part-time employees. I mean, part-time, like, they maybe worked 8, 10, 12 hours a week. And then we had probably about a dozen licensees. Immediately when I came into the business, a few of the licensees who had an allegiance to the partner of the founder chose to leave the business, and that was fine. They were non-producers. They were kind of hangers-on with the friends of that, and that was fine.
That happens. It's typical.
Absolutely, and it was fine. The sales team that was producing, that was doing well, interestingly enough, some of them I had a previous relationship with because they had also come from Gartner. So I had a little bit of friendly faces in the crowd when I came over. And then some of them didn't necessarily know me personally, but they knew of me because I had been a customer. Right. But I had a different philosophy of what I was trying to do with the business. I mean, the founder had built a great lifestyle business. Literally, he and his partner would look at the bank account at the end of each quarter and say, okay, I'm going to take this much, you take that much. And they would just siphon off all the cash. They were living large. It was great.
Yeah.
I had a different idea. I thought we could really build and scale a business to grow. So what did that mean? Well, in a global world, it meant that we had to develop capabilities outside of the U.S. We had to start to translate. And if any of you have gone through translation, it is a challenge, especially when you've got kind of proprietary IP with made up words in it. We have words in it that you won't find in the Webster dictionary that in English can have a one literal meaning, and then you start to translate that to German or Japanese or Korean. It's just a real challenge. So we started to think about how we were going to do that. Plus, we just started to think about what additional programs we could build. When I came into the business, we were kind of a one-trick pony, and we needed to be able to support the breadth of skills and processes that organizations were developing and needing to be successful. And I think that extending our product line, extending our reach, translating were all some of the challenges that we had. And then prioritizing, because you can't do it all at once. Or we weren't in a position to do it all at once because I bootstrapped the growth. I did not take on any capital during this time. We bootstrapped it all.
Wow. So you were thinking about, all right, if we're going to scale, obviously we will need some more people to sell.
Yes.
But that alone is not enough. We need a global reach. In order to have a global reach, we have to translate. Now, I have been through that in my days with Miller Hyman. We translated to, I don't know, at least 20 different languages, but it's more than just translation. I learned it's localization as well. And then, like you said, the words that you use that are not words in that other language. So it's a very interesting process. So that in of itself is a big, big undertaking. And then you mentioned also that you had to bring on some new and different products to serve the market where it is, at the time, right? And of course, you continue to do that, I'm sure. So that's a lot to do at once and to bootstrap it. So tell me, what were some of the challenges you had? What was hard?
Well, what was hard initially was finding companies or other, in mostly companies I was looking for, or other partners that I could hire to help me scale the growth. Because since I was bootstrapping it, it's not like I could go out and hire a team of 10 people. I did change the part-time employees to full-time, and had a full-time marketer and a full-time accountant and kind of an operations person initially. But everything else we did, kind of took advantage of the gig economy before the gig economy was cool, and said, okay, we're gonna approach this project by project. So finding those companies, then finding the individuals. You can't just hire somebody to translate your content, because it's not a literal translation. You need to find people that understand business.
Yes.
Then you need to find subject matter experts on our side that can help us with that. And quite frankly, early on, we leaned on some of our customers.
Wow. Yeah.
We had customers that were asking us for localized versions of the program in various countries, and they had the resources to help with that translation. So
yeah, they had probably translated some things inside their own company. So that's fantastic. That was really smart.
So it was a great partnership with some of our clients. I mean, I think early on we had Eastman Kodak, who was a client back in the day, and they helped us with Spanish. And we had Siemens in Germany help us with German. And we had a few clients like that had these huge wealth of resources. And it was in their best interest for us to be successful in that endeavor. So that was good. We also then put in place some incentives for my existing channel to go clone themselves and go find people that would help. So that became some of my recruiting arm. Because the interesting thing when you're dealing with licensees and people that are 100% independent is oftentimes they're not looking for a job.
No.
They're looking for a career opportunity. And we found a lot of people would come to us maybe at the end of their career, like, hey, I just retired from here. I think I could do this. But they really approached it from a lifestyle, opportunistic, like, I'm not going to roll up my sleeves and do the work to build a business. But if you can throw me some leads, Julie, and I can close them, I'd be happy to do that. So we really had to kind of sort through what is the profile that we want. And we wanted people that weren't kind of using this as their last job. They weren't ready to retire yet, to people that really wanted to build a 10, 15, 20-year business and leave a legacy, because the business can be incredibly lucrative. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's also, it takes a lot of work and expertise to be successful. And we're looking for people that not only know how to sell, but then have the credibility and the skill set to facilitate. And we get a lot of people that would like one or the other. I get a lot of people that would love to teach it. You figure out how to sell it, Julie. I'll come in and teach it. I'll parachute in, and be the sage on the stage and just be, infotainment for the learners. And that's really not what we're looking for. We're looking for practitioners as well.
Yeah, I know that model well, as you can imagine. But what it sounds like, why things worked for you is because you did have a strategy first. And in that growth strategy, you knew there were several different things that would need to happen. The people that were going to sell and deliver, the globalization and, all the things that came along with that, and then the new products. So you had those pieces that were your strategy, and then you had to implement. And it sounds like there were a couple of tough things. And I know myself in working with independent contractors that, like you said, some of them come along and they just want kind of a part-time gig, and why don't you throw me some leads, And some of them want to build a serious business. How do you find the ones who want to build a serious business? So how did you do that?
Well, it's a lot of trial and error. And I also leaned on the people doing the job. So when we do find those good candidates, we have them talk to the associates. I also require a business plan in the early stages. And if they can't put together a business plan that makes sense, then I know that they're probably not going to be successful here. And anytime you bring somebody new into the organization, it's a lot of time and effort that we spend training them, certifying them, We do provide some infrastructure for all of our licensees in terms of software licenses and things like that. But finding the people that don't need a job, and when I say don't need a job, don't need a paycheck next Friday,
yes,
is sometimes hard, because if you decide that you want to go into a license or a franchise and build a business, it is there's runway before you get some income coming in, and not everybody's in that position. We tend to gravitate to the people that might have 10, 15 years sales experience. Ideally, they've used our framework or some sort of a process that's similar, and they can become expert in our framework. And we ended up with, some associates, they'd been world-class sales reps. They had invested well. Some of them might have even worked for a company that had some sort of a liquidity event, and they had options or components. And so they had that financial cushion that they could step back and say, hey, I don't want to be an employee anymore. I want an opportunity to build something for myself. And I've talked with a lot of people that skill set might be great, but life stature and position just isn't the right time.
Right. So this is really important for any CEO who's thinking about a strategy that includes independent contractors or a channel, right? So it's not direct sellers. It's someone who works for themselves or works for another company that's going to represent you and sell your products and services. And there's so many different ways. In manufacturing, they have manufacturers reps, and then in your type of business or professional services, many times it's an independent contractor. But it is important to have people who really understand that they're growing their own business. And I think that process of bringing on licensees or franchisee people or manufacturers reps, any kind of a channel, you really need to set it up before you start doing it, right? And have a process for vetting them, have a process for onboarding them, have a process for the ongoing training and upgrading and things, upskilling that you need to do to keep them on their toes and have them have the best that they can put out there, right? So how did you really build an approach to your channel that did those things that left you with these great people who help you build your company but as an independent contractor?
Well, I think part of it is how you build the culture of any organization, right? At the end of the day, all business boils down to relationships and trust and transparency and those types of things. And I think over the years, I have developed a culture of cooperation and collaboration with these licensees. I mean, the reality is some of our clients don't even understand that these people aren't part of it. They all operate, 90% of them operate as value selling. We get together on a regular basis. We lift each other up. We share best practices. They all partner together. I mean, we had a very large client, in the computer industry 5 years ago that was doing a global sales meeting. And they decided at a part of their global sales meeting, they wanted to train 600 people simultaneously in 6 languages. So we brought together a team of 23 people, showed up at the Gaylord Hotel and at their sales meeting, and we delivered 23 high quality events for this client. And our associates celebrated and collaborated and partnered and worked together. And I think that is part of the culture that I've built. I don't know if it was by design or if it just somewhat becomes reflective of of my personality of trying to be transparent and collaborative, and but that is the reality of what we have. And I will tell you, these last 18 months, we typically get together at least once a year for an annual meeting. The associates are all missing being together. I mean, we're
Yeah,
all
I'm
zoomed out.
sure.
We're all doing all this virtual
Yeah.
stuff, and so we're seeing each other. But I am hearing from them, Julie, when is our meeting? When are we going to plan a meeting again? We can't wait to get back together now that things are starting to open back up.
Well, I think this is so important what you're saying for anyone who is trying to build a channel. It is an extended part of your business. It is your family, and the culture that you build around that is going to make or break it. Because if there's an adversarial relationship between those independent sellers and your company, and I've seen it a million times, I'm sure you've seen it too when you've helped people train their channel, that adversarial relationship just doesn't really work for anyone. And when you're trying to build and scale like you did and still are, you need your channel on your side. Like you said, they brought you more people like themselves. They helped you reach out to clients when you needed the translations. They helped you when you had a huge client, and they all worked together. And that's really what a channel should be like. It should be a pleasure to work with them. They should love working with you. And even though they may sell some other products that are not competitive with yours, they're focused on selling your product and bringing the business in to this group, which I just love. So I think that's really important. I'm curious, what were some of the hardest things about building that channel? What were some of the things that didn't work?
Well, I think so. So first of all, one of the things that I think you have to do well is have clear rules of engagement that everybody fully understands. Mm-hmm. And our premise was, we're not going to compete with each other. Let's face it, it's hard enough to compete in the marketplace as it is. We're not going to compete with each other. So we set up clear rules of engagement. The other thing that I decided early on is, if I have to be the arbitrator every time there's a conflict, I will lose, because somebody's not going to be happy with the decision I make. So I created kind of a little panel of them and let them figure it out. And then I'll just support the decision that they make. So I involved them a little bit more. I think the things that are the hardest with the independent channel, and they're hard for employees as well, is when things change. And as we've grown in scale, some of the processes that worked when we were a company of 10 or 12 no longer work when you're 60, 70, 80 people, right? So we've had to change some business processes. Everything today is technology enabled, whether it's, we use Slack, we use a sales enablement platform. We've got all of these connected ways to share content, collaborate, best practices. But anytime there's a change, it's hard, and just getting people that are very busy to learn something new is my continual battle or challenge. I wouldn't say battle, because that sounds like it's confrontational. It's not, but it's a continual challenge.
You're focused on it though, and that's important. So as the CEO, do you manage the channel, or do you have a channel manager, someone who really does a lot of that interfacing?
I have a full-time employee that reports directly to me, and her title is Head of Associate Success. Okay. So she's responsible. Think of her as like your traditional sales enablement person. She facilitates for me onboarding. She helps me with recruiting. She's responsible for our tech stack. She's responsible for a lot of that interface. And I still work one-on-one with all licensees, especially when it comes to big deal strategy, where we might need additional resource and all the special things that come up. And the interesting thing also is my licensees, they're brilliant and they're close to the customer. So early on when I came into value selling, I was talking with a gentleman. He said, you know what, you really need to read the book Beyond the Arches. And it's about the history of McDonald's and their franchises. And I'm like, I need to read a book about McDonald's? Like, you clearly have not explained to you what I do. And I read the book on a summer vacation. And one of the whole premises of the book, and the reason I think he thought I would benefit from it was all of the new product innovation, all of the good ideas at McDonald's came from the franchises. The fish sandwich came from a McDonald's store owner in Cleveland who was in a Catholic neighborhood, and every Friday his sales went tanked because no one would buy a hamburger because it was a very Catholic neighborhood and Catholics didn't eat meat on Fridays. So he invented the fish sandwich and went and shopped it and sourced it and figured it out and then got corporate to adopt it. So I tried to really create a culture as a part of that where they have all the good ideas and I want to hear them. They hear what the clients need. I don't need to build new products from an ivory tower here in San Diego. Right. I just need to listen to my licensees and then help them with the right resource when we identify those gaps and areas that we can get better.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So we'll put that in the show notes. It was called Under the Arch or Beyond the Arches.
Beyond the Arches, I think it was.
Beyond the Arches. Okay, great. Now you're a CEO who is extremely involved in sales, in the sales strategy, in building the sales organization, and even in working directly with the people who come to sell for you as independent contractors. I love that. I think it's great. How, though, do you balance all the other work that a CEO has to do every single day to run their company and manage to stay that involved in sales?
Well, it's interesting, right? That is an interesting dilemma. So as we've grown, well, let me step back a couple of things. I have a business degree in finance. When I was in college, my stepfather told me it doesn't matter what you're going to do. You should learn accounting, you should learn finance because every business needs that and every business decision, you need to understand the language of finance. So it was probably the best advice I got as an 18-year-old. And so I understood enough about accounting and finance to be dangerous, to not get myself in trouble. So that was a good background for me, even though my career started in sales. But I think what you need to do, like I didn't understand marketing. I understood selling. I didn't understand all the marketing strategy and branding, and I didn't understand instructional design. I just knew that if I knew what I was talking about, I could go out and talk to people. So I had to go find people that could fill those gaps. And I partnered with a small entrepreneur firm early on called Boulder Learning that had instructional designers and became really good friends with them. Again, that was a business partnership that at some point one of the partners got an offer that she couldn't refuse, and so she went and took a job. So I was able to hire this phenomenal instructional designer, and she's got a graphics background and a user experience background, and she's been just one of the best assets to our organization that we have. And then through her, we brought in, we were using an agency for marketing, and then ultimately brought in one of the principals from that agency and brought in copywriters and all those things. So I think it's knowing what I don't know and then being able to go find people that complement that. So we're a lean team here at Value Selling. We're a lean team. But we have built a solid team with solid expertise. And then I outsource, again, gig economy, what I don't need. I don't need a full-time IT person. But I have an IT person because when you need them now, right? Yes. And so all of those things.
Yeah, that's so smart, really. And I think with CEOs who especially are founders, even when they're, 10 or 20 years in, they founded the company because they're good at something that probably wasn't selling necessarily. So they may shy away a little bit from the sales end of things. And also, of course, when you're a CEO, there's so many things to do. You're responsible for so much. But carving out a piece of your time to focus on the sales, right? Especially at the strategy level. So you're setting that strategy, you're setting that vision, and you personally have some involvement, but you have all these other people helping you deploy the strategy. And I love that. And I think that's surely one of the things that has made you very successful. I want to talk a little bit about something you and I were chatting about before we started recording, which was you are now for the first time hiring direct sellers. So that's so interesting to me. Tell me, how did you decide that along with your independent contractors who sell and deliver, you would also hire direct sellers? And tell me, do they also deliver or do they just sell? And then kind of what your vision is for having those direct sellers and how that's all going to work.
So it's a couple of things. So one of the challenges with the independents is our business model was, in order for you to get certified to teach, you had to make some sales because you were going to get certified and learn how to teach our programs in your clients. And so it takes a while for them to get off the ground. So I started to think about, well, how could I help them? How can I get them into the classroom, get some experience, get some certified faster? The other challenge with the independent channel is, it's all a revenue share, right? I get a piece of the revenue, they get a piece of the revenue. So it's just a little bit of a different financial relationship. So last year we decided, you know what, I am going to build, and we're testing it, but I think I can teach them how to sell. That I got going for me. And a direct channel, and they will go out and sell on behalf of ValueSelling Associates and bring in clients that we will then leverage the independent contractor channel and put money in their pocket because I will pay them to do the delivery. So how we explain this to the associates, because I didn't want them threatened, but of course some of them.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so hold the fort here, Julie. Like, I'm an independent contractor and you're telling me you're going to bring in someone to compete with me?
No, not to compete with you, because all boats rise with the tide. I am going to bring in additional people to create opportunities for you to be in the classroom and get paid a very healthy day rate to project manage. They will do all the fulfillment. I will be leveraging the associates to do all of the fulfillment for that. Now, we've only hired them 4 months ago, so we're just starting to see some opportunities kind of transition. I did not take lead flow away from the associates. We're trying some new lead gen tactics that will be for the direct sales. And it's a bet that I'm making that I can accelerate my top line growth with direct sellers. But it was interesting at the reaction from some of my licensees.
Right, because I bet they just felt like you were going to try to compete with them and possibly would take money out of their pocket. But I love the words that you chose to tell them, I'm providing more opportunity for you versus taking something away from you. But what was some of the pushback that you got?
Well, whether you've got a direct sales force or an indirect sales force, they all ask for the same thing. Just, Julie, invest in getting me more leads.
Right.
Don't spend money on payroll and headcount and benefits. Oh, Julie, that's awfully expensive. You're bringing in direct sellers. Why don't you just go and do more lead generation? And I didn't see it as an either or. We are still looking at lead generation, and specific lead generation for the indirect channel. They are the bread and butter. It is on their shoulders that I stand, the bread and butter business that we have built. I would be foolish to do things that hurt them. So the perception that I was going to hurt them, I think in their mind they knew. I had a few that called me and said, congratulations. That's exactly what I would do if I was you. So, you take the good with the bad, right?
But you didn't lose anybody.
No.
They're going to see how it goes. And I think they're going to see, of course, because you did this again with the best intentions to help them, that it's going to blossom. It's going to be great for everybody.
I think so. And the ones there's no threat to the ones that have been doing this and have a revenue generation pipeline. In this business, Alice, you've been in it for a long time. Our best customers are our former customers that refer us.
Right. That's right.
And it's our VP of sales that hired us at this account that now is at that account. And oh boy, the way that account is 10% larger than the last one. And our associates, many of them aren't doing a ton of what you'd think of traditional business development because they have got such a fertile referral network that all they have to do is nurture and maintain and invest in that network, and the business is coming to them.
Wonderful.
That we're not tapping into that in any way,
No.
shape, or form.
And that's the way it should be. I mean, that's what I want for all salespeople, for them to really grow and maintain and nurture a network so that they do have that incoming and they do have that flow so that they don't have to do as much cold prospecting because that is harder and it takes longer. So I love that. Well, okay, so rounding out this discussion, let's talk about the future, Julie. What's coming in the future of sales at Value Selling?
So I think where we're spending a lot of our time thinking about is how do we improve the learner experience, learner being the people that come to our programs, and make it easier for them to drive adoption. And one thing that is for sure is there's a convergence of technology enablement, that is not the business I'm in. We're all about the skills, the behaviors, maybe even the mindset. We have tools, but how do we fit those in to the technology infrastructure of what a sales rep is expected to do every day? So we've been making tremendous strides in CRM integration and looking at now account planning integration into CRM, all to make it easier for the sales rep to do. The other thing that I think we're spending more and more time thinking about is how do we help the sales manager? Any of you other CEOs and leaders who have sales managers that work for you know that is by far the hardest job on the planet. They're just pulled in a million directions, and layer on top of that now the remote aspect. Some days you're probably just trying to find your team, let alone know what they're doing, right? So really, how do we help those managers manage, coach, support the skills and the behaviors that we teach in our programs? The one fallacy that I know of anybody who's ever done any kind of sales training is that it's not a one and done. Changing adult behavior. Alice, you were sharing with me that you have a puppy. Changing the behavior of any living entity is not easy. The puppy is easier to train though than many adults. So
it's so true. And behavior is hard to change even when you want to change it, let alone when you weren't the one who wanted the change. It's like, hey, I've been doing this way a long time. Why would I change now? So yes, I agree with you. We're all in the behavior change business, and in sales, that is what it's all about. And things are changing so rapidly in the marketplace, and the way our customers are buying is changing so rapidly. But it seems like the sales training and the sales coaching is lagging way behind, and we've just got to help them pick up the pace on feeling more comfortable being adaptable and flexible to bend and morph and be more available for customers, have it be more about the customer engagement than the products and services that we sell. I mean, we've been saying this for years, but now more than ever. And really, we do have to help them change. They have to adapt, but it isn't easy. And so anything that we can do is helpful. So in your own organization, you're a sales organization who sells how to help people be better at sales, and you're looking at the same kinds of things. So I love that for your future and continued growth. And so I guess let's just wrap it up with, what are some things that you would say to CEOs who maybe didn't come from sales or only did one part of sales, like you did actually, maybe you've done a couple different parts of sales before you got to running this company. things that they can think about that have helped you be able to lead sales as the CEO without being in the nitty gritty. Because when I say to CEOs, oh, you need to be leading sales, they're like, well, I'm not going to go out and sell. I'm not going to cold call. I'm not going to process. Of course you're not, right? That's not the CEO's role in sales. The CEO's role is setting the strategy for the entire company, the sales strategy within that, and the vision, and then transferring that vision so that everyone can go execute. So what words of advice, Julie, do you have to CEOs who do want to be more involved in sales and maybe just really don't know exactly what their role would be?
So selling is communicating. That's all selling is. It's communicating and engaging individuals to add value to them. I mean, and when you come at selling, I think part of the reason so many people say, oh, selling, and it's like cringeworthy, is because the immediate stereotype of the used car snake oil person, I'm going to try to push my agenda on you and sell you something you don't need, you don't want, and might not even work. But that's not what selling really is. Selling is about communicating with people, understanding their needs, and then satisfying those needs with whatever products, services, offering you have. And so the CEO often has the most confidence in the capabilities that you have because they've got that perspective and point of view. And then it's just all about having a conversation. So when we flip what we think selling is from pushing to creating that pull with people where they're leaning in, tell me more, I want to learn more, I think you can help me. That's where I think CEOs can add the most value. And then it's just a conversation. And most CEOs are decent communicators, or they'd be stuck still in the engineering lab somewhere, So, we all have different strengths, but it's just a conversation. That's all selling is.
And that's exactly right. That's what good sellers will bring their CEOs in to have conversations with higher level people or other CEOs in the organization, right? If you're a smaller company selling to a really large company, you may not be able to get your CEO positioned with their CEO, but you can get them positioned with the VPs and the general managers and the higher level people. And your customer appreciates that. They're like, okay, we're going to get to have a conversation with the CEO who built this thing, runs this thing, right? And really cares. And so I think CEOs can make a huge contribution at that level without getting into the weeds of selling, but just set that strategy, set that vision, help support everyone to go after that vision, and then be there as a communicator, like you said, when they're needed.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
Yeah. And especially if you're a small company calling on a large company,
yes,
often you need that executive presence to help establish your credibility. So, if you're new or you're a startup or just calling on a huge company, that's when the executive presence of the CEO, all the C-suite executives have to be comfortable talking to customers.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think it's just CEOs need to realize the days of lone wolf selling are long, long gone, and that it's team selling, and we use our players on our team as we need them to approach different customers in different ways at different levels. And I think that is what the CEO can do. Well, Julie, this has been amazing. I can't believe you took out so much time of your day. We chatted before we started recording. It was fantastic. I just so appreciate your sharing your knowledge and your journey and how you built your sales organization. I know that the other CEOs out there listening will get a lot from this conversation. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity, Alice. It was great to talk with you. Take care.
Okay, bye now. Thanks for tuning in to Sales Talk for CEOs. You can find me at alicehyman.com. Be sure and connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know that you heard the show. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, write a review, and share the show with another CEO.